Hey, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on Sifted.net. Hope you're a subscriber on Patreon. If not, and you're watching on YouTube, please follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. Our first question from Twitter, from at Takeo Ray. What is your stance on companies restricting streamers from generating revenue from Let's Play content? Do you feel companies like Nintendo should have complete control over how their games are being viewed? Aren't streamers and YouTubers giving them free advertising? Okay, so the answer is when you buy a game, you are buying a license to play that game, and it's exactly the same as when you rent or buy a DVD movie, and you have the license to watch it. You don't have a license to rebroadcast. So imagine what would happen to DVD sales, which are already low, if they said, oh, you can buy it and then you can post it on YouTube, a movie. Who would ever watch a movie and pay for it if people were allowed to buy one copy and post it on YouTube? Nobody. So the game companies have the right to say your license limits you to just playing it and you cannot broadcast it. And there are actually all sorts of rules about how many seconds you can broadcast, and they'll let you, that's where game trailers come from. You can fashion a trailer, I forgot, it's a minute or 2 minutes or whatever. There's a limited amount of gameplay you can show. So the answer is, Nintendo's pretty aggressive about it, that they don't want people showing their games. I'm not sure why, because I'm with you. I mean, streamers are not saying, okay, play along with me and get a thrill. We don't get that much fun out of watching somebody play a single player game. I mean, it's great to help you figure out how to get through a level. They'll show you what to do, but you actually want to do it yourself. I mean, we play games to do it. Multiplayer, same thing. Like, I really like watching great players. That's fun, but I also know that's not me, and I enjoy playing more than watching. So I don't think that the publishers lose very much by allowing this Let's Play walkthrough, kind of show stuff. I don't think that they are looking, Nintendo or the other publishers, for a piece of the revenue from the streamer. I don't think they care about that at all. I actually think they just are trying not to reveal too much of the game so that there's a mystery, a mystique, and you, the gamer, will go buy their game. And, it's a good question whether the companies who enforce their license restrictions are losing out from free advertising. I think that's a great question. And the answer to your last question, yes, for sure, streamers and YouTubers are giving the publisher free advertising. And there's a trade-off. Are they getting more sales from the free advertising than they're losing from people who somehow get their fix by watching someone else play it? Again, my personal view is almost nobody gets their fix from watching somebody play it. The only risk of the publisher is if the game sucks. And if the YouTuber is going, this is such a piece of crap and you should not buy it, well, that's obviously not free advertising. So I almost think the happy medium is if the publisher says, okay, our license says you can't display it. In order to display it, you need to get our permission first. And in order to gain our permission to display it, you have to agree you won't say anything bad about the game. And if a YouTuber says, screw you, no, then fine, then they can't show it. And if they say, no, I really love the game, let's say it's Super Mario Odyssey, then it is great publicity, and you want every YouTuber in the world and every streamer in the world to be playing your game and talking about it. And then it does beget sales. So that's the happy medium, and I get the whole freedom of speech thing. You can bash a game in print as often as you want. You just can't show the game and what you hate about it if the publisher doesn't let you. So I think that's a happy medium, and I think if it is mutually beneficial, if you, the streamer or YouTuber, make revenue from your broadcast, and if they, the publisher, get free advertising, everybody wins. So I think that's what will end up happening, but I can't tell you why Nintendo cracks down on this. They're not the only ones, but they're the most vocal, I'd say. Next question this week comes from Patreon, from Ben James Hodges. Hey, Pac, Crow Team, who developed Serious Sam games, sold 5,000 copies of the new VR version of the Talos Principle. Many gamers were angry that they charged again for a 3-year-old game, but Crow Team said it's not economically viable considering the additional development required. If the base game sold 900,000 copies, is 5,000 about the sales numbers you expect for a VR re-release, or is the demand just low? VR is just not that penetrated. So, I mean, let's be real. The VR game, any VR game, costs money to make. And whatever it costs, it's more than 5,000 bucks. It's more than 50,000 bucks. It probably is 500,000 bucks. So if you sell 5,000 copies, you're not even recovering your development cost. So of course it's not economically viable to give it away. Look, there is nothing in existence, no IP in existence that you can make money selling 5,000 copies. I'm reminded of that Martin Shkreli, the pharma bro, the guy who, I don't know if he's gone to jail yet, but he was overcharging people for drugs. He bought the only copy in existence of some Wu-Tang Clan album. And I can't remember what he paid, but it was like millions of dollars. You know, yeah, if you want to sell one album for $1 million, okay, then Wu-Tang Clan can make money. If Crow Team could charge, you know, 500 bucks per copy for 5,000 copies of their game, maybe they can make money. But no, you make games because you want to sell a lot of copies and you want to produce the game for 20% of the revenue and you make profit on the rest. And on 5,000 copies, there's no frickin' way they make money. There's no way. So I'm not really sure what you're asking. I would expect that VR is what they call chicken and egg. Until there's a lot of chickens, you're not going to have a lot of eggs. But you need eggs to grow up into chickens. So that's the problem. You know, until there's a lot of people with VR, you know, headsets and VR rigs, you just can't sell very many copies of games. And if there aren't games, nobody's going to buy a VR rig. So it's one of those tough things that takes subsidy in order to develop. And so, no, I don't think we have very many HTC Vives out there. I would bet between Oculus and HTC, you have way under 1 million, you know, headsets sold so far. And maybe PlayStation VR is that high, but you know, it's going to take a while, and Sony had to subsidize it. I advised on a prior version of Pachter Factor, wait for wireless, because I mean, my biggest problem is that you're tethered with the headset, and I think kind of silly, but they made the headset cord something like 6 or 8 feet. It needs to be like 15, so you can be comfortable and sit down and not have your head snapping back. So, you know, it's going to take a while, and I'd say VR is just going to be, you know, the technology of tomorrow. It's not the technology of today. Tech is good, but there's not enough software, and you're not going to make money. And so suck it up and pay whatever it takes for the few games that are in VR, because they really are fun. Got a question from Patreon from Volker Bach. I think I know Volker Bach. I do know you, don't I? Hey, Pac. Zero Punctuation's Yahtzee once proposed a world where consoles are like DVD players. Everything is cross-compatible, no exclusives, and all backwards compatible. Do you see something like that ever happening? Why did it happen for movies and TV but not video games? Yeah, of course it's going to happen, and it's called PC. You know, so if everything is playable on a PC, it'll work on anything. Microsoft wants it all to work in the Windows world. Apple wants it all to work in the iOS world. Google wants it all to work in the Android world. Amazon uses an Intel processor in the Echo Show. Somebody's got to be the distributor of the content, and between Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, somebody is at Microsoft. Somebody wants to be that guy. The reason it happened with DVDs and not video games is that there was a loser in each DVD cycle. So if you roll back to the late 70s, the first videotape format was Betamax, and it lost to VHS, so Sony Betamax lost to Panasonic VHS. The first DVD format was actually something called multimedia CD from Sony, and they lost. And then Toshiba did HD DVD and Sony did Blu-ray, and Sony made the brilliant move of putting Blu-ray players in PS3s And for the privilege of buying a Blu-ray player in a PS3, you got to pay $600 instead of $400 for an Xbox 360. And so that really hurt Sony overall, but they did win the Blu-ray war against HD DVD. So Toshiba was DVD as well. So Toshiba lost with HD DVD, and that format's gone. So we would have had incompatible multiple formats on videotape, DVD, and Blu-ray, but one guy won. And so that's what's going on with console. And one guy's not going to win until we move off the console altogether and we go to just standard CPU, GPU. And that, I think, is coming. I think that's coming this decade. I mean, it's happening in the next 3 years. So the answer is yes, I do see it happening, but the game console makers have a vested interest in selling you consoles and then capturing a royalty on the software, and that's why they have their proprietary formats. That's what Sony tried to do with Betamax. They wanted to get a royalty on every movie put in the videotape format. And Panasonic said, nope, free, movie studios. Put it on VHS, which was an inferior format, and you can put your movie on our format and make as many copies as you want. We'll charge you nothing. You just have to buy the tapes. So Panasonic beat Sony by not charging a royalty. And nobody is beating Sony PlayStation or Microsoft Xbox by not paying a royalty except PC. So that'll happen when we get rid of consoles and we go to PC. Coming. Okay, our last question this week comes from Sifted from Zet Saber. What unforeseen events can cause the stock price of a video game publisher to become highly volatile? Well, if they're unforeseen, I don't know. They move like crazy on the silliest things. So the unforeseen event is a previously popular game looks like it's going to be unpopular. That happened a couple of years ago when Call of Duty Infinite Warfare got relatively low Metacritic scores. The stock tanked. It happened last year when Titanfall didn't sell well out of the gates. EA stock tanked. It happened in 2014 when one of my competitors said that Destiny's 75 Metacritic score meant nobody would buy it, and he said that his anecdotal evidence in late September of 2014 was nobody was playing Destiny. Obviously, famous last words, he was wrong. He may be watching this, so I'm not going to name him, but what a bad call. And Activision stock went from 24 to 18. That's a pretty big drop. Primarily with publishers, it's a bad game coming out, and they tend to tank when a game's bad. When EA shut down Visceral a couple weeks ago, their stock went down by $5, which is 5%, but in a market that's doing fine, because it's a signal that there's something going on that's not good at EA. It's highly unusual to shut down a studio. And normally you just say, okay, we'll get rid of 1 or 2 or 3 or 50 people at the studio and put in better people and try to fix what's wrong. And so closing the studio is pretty unusual, and the stock went down. But it tends to be stuff like that. You don't get a precipitous drop unless they announce, that or a game comes out and is terrible. Same thing, volatility the other way. A game comes out and gets amazing reviews, the stocks tend to go up. So that's not a big shocker when it's GTA. You kind of expect the game to get in the 90s. But every once in a while there'll be a game coming out that nobody thought was going to be very good, and Battlefield 1 got an 88, I think. That was 12 points or 14 points higher than the prior Battlefield. So that stock went up on that, and then a week later went down on Titanfall not selling well. So you just never know. But game review scores matter to investors. Game sales data matters to investors. Analyst commentary, mine included. If we say this is really bad, stocks tend to move a lot. But that's the answer. Thank you for joining us on this week's Pachter Factor. I hope that you are watching on Patreon, on sifted.net, and you're a Patreon patron. If not, and you're watching on YouTube a week later, you're getting it for free. So in exchange for free access to Pack Lovin', please follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. We will see you next week.
So on Game Phase, which is an opinion-based show where we either criticize or praise the games we're talking about, we can run 10 seconds of a Nintendo game in a 3-hour show.
And you have to pay them?
And Nintendo will take all the advertising revenue for that episode of Game Face. It's insane.
How do they get it? YouTube gives it to them?
Yeah, I mean, you outlined it at the beginning.
Oh.
Legally, because of the license people sign when they start playing the game, Nintendo can do it.
So you don't show Nintendo content because you don't want to give them all your revenue?
Sometimes we make sure we don't. Yeah, I mean, you consciously think in the back of your mind, I cannot monetize this if we show any footage of Nintendo's games. And it's not just trailers. Like, we can show a trailer for a Nintendo game, and they'll flag it and take that money.
Wow.
It's gameplay. They
That's
actively
crazy.
have people looking at YouTube videos for raw gameplay you captured yourself.
I don't know legal. I mean, if you waive your rights, I guess they can give. They can do
Legally,
it.
they can totally do it because you're right.
No,
License-
legally they can force you to take down the content. I don't think they can force you to pay them unless you signed a contract that says so.
Well, the only way you can make money at all off Nintendo content on YouTube is if you become a Nintendo influencer
Right.
or ambassador.
Yeah, I knew that.
And then you get, like, I think it's 30%, and Nintendo takes the rest.
I mean, God bless them if they can get it. But
They
I think the question's right. I think there's more benefit from the advertising than there is from them taking the revenue.